All righty, everyone. Here we are to the first ever episode, a new dawning, some are calling it, of the Wyoming Valley Conference preview podcast. Every single week, right here at 4 p.m., live from the Berwick Innovation Center in Berwick, Pennsylvania, we will be talking about all the Wyoming Valley Conference has to offer, what happened the week prior, predicting games as the season comes along, any storylines that develop, we have it covered. Every single game will be talked about that takes place in the Wyoming Valley Conference. We're hoping to do this into December. We're hoping to have some Wyoming Valley Conference teams that can make it pretty far in the postseason. Dallas got all the way to the state finals a year ago, so we're hoping to see a lot of that. So, what is this podcast about? Right? Why are you here? Why are you listening? Who's in it, what, everything, okay? Today I'm riding solo, like Jason Derulo, okay? But potentially in these next couple of weeks, we could have 2 to 3 different members of the podcast, could have a 3 Musketeer type setup here. Quincy Piper of PA Football News will be joining us starting next week, and Field of Dreams will be potentially joining us on and off. We don't really know his schedule yet, so we'll get into that as we get going. But as of right now, what this show's about, what is it going to be throughout the entirety of the season? This episode will be different than what we're going to be seeing the entirety of the season because as it stands, it's August 15th. So high school football hasn't started yet. It won't start this week. Of course, we'll get going next week, 8 days from now on August the 23rd. So it wouldn't make any sense to preview the games right now. What are we going to do next week? Next week will be the actual regular scheduled programming of this show. We're going to be previewing the games, every single game. And as we get into the season, we will preview the games that were the games that are coming up. Since this is a Thursday show, we'll have a nice, easy day layover to Friday. And then we will also review some of the big time moments if something happened we didn't expect and everything that's covered in the Wyoming Valley Conference. What is this first episode, though? Ryan Arcangeli, Crestwood head football coach who had a very great team a couple of years ago, made the state playoffs, made the state semifinals. He will be joining us in just 28 minutes at 4:30 p.m. We're hoping to have more coaches and players, at least one every single week. But for the debut, my good friend, Coach Ryan Arcangeli, will be joining us at half past. We'll talk about what to watch for in the Wyoming Valley Conference. This is a completely unknown. Everybody's undefeated right now as the new season rolls upon us. We have an idea. Everybody can have an idea of what the team's going to do. We know this team will be better than this team. We expect it, but nobody really knows until you play the games. And that is what we are excited to see in just 8 days. We'll have record predictions for all 12 teams in the next 60 minutes. All 12 teams will be predicted. I'll put them out on my Twitter after this. You can clown me in December, okay, when I picked your team to go 4-6 and they go 10-0. So we have storylines for the season because there's been a lot of changing, teams moving, classifications, new coaches coming in. As always, players leaving, who's coming back. What will you get from your team? That'll also be discussed here. And then the most interesting players entering this season, okay? Some guys in the past have said it's not about the X's and O's, it's about the Jimmies and Joes. We'll introduce you to 5 Jimmies and Joes coming up. First off, in our preview of the Wyoming Valley Conference, let's remind you of what happened a year ago. Dallas won the conference in their regular season and also had the most successful postseason, going 15-1, having an incredible upset. Rich Manello in the company there. Incredible upset over Bishop McDevitt in the state semifinals to get to the state championship game. They ran into the just powerhouse that is the Aliquippa Quips and could not get it done. But Dallas and the Mountaineers going to the state finals at 4A, it's nothing to hang their hats, They get Brady Zapaticki back. They get Dylan Geske back. They do lose Zach Pacheski on the end at receiver, but they're 15-1 and they look very strong coming back another year. Crestwood, we mentioned him earlier. Ryan Arcangeli will join the show. They were 5-1 in the division, 6-5 overall. Of course, Jaden Shedlock got hurt. We'll hear from that with Coach Arcangeli. But they were a team that a couple of years ago, Noah Schultz and company just dominated, ran through teams, won their district title against Valley View in a snow-fested game that was a couple of years ago, kept going in the postseason, got to the semifinals, and they look to kind of bounce back because last year, I don't think anybody really thinks last year is what to expect from Crestwood. We're going to see them come back better than ever. The Wilkes-Barre Wolfpack had a 5-6 overall season last year, a 3-2 record. It's been a long time now. It's not the early stages anymore with Wilkes-Barre when they collided the three schools together. They're expected to win now. I understand it's 6A football up there, but they combined three schools. They were expected. They had an expectation these last couple of years to go win games. I know they lost a couple of players to the Northeast, but a 5-6 season a year ago, that's not going to cut it. Ciro Cinti and those boys got to get it together. The Berwick Bulldogs moved divisions, but last year they finished 3-8. Coach CJ Curry comes in, and we'll mention that later on our biggest storylines. The Berwick Bulldogs, they kind of, to me, feel like the Nebraska Cornhuskers in college football. If you follow college football at any length, you know Nebraska in the 90s was that team, right? Won national championships. They were the team to beat. They were the Georgia of the 90s. Ever since then, they've just been talking about the glory days and not actually winning in the now. And talking about the glory days is fine, but you can't win games talking about the glory days. They have to move forward. But like Nebraska, there's going to be eyes on the Berwick Bulldogs because it is the brand that is the Berwick Bulldogs. And we're expecting good things out of them. The last couple of years, it has not shown in fruition. Williamsport and the Millionaires, a 5-6 season a year ago, puts themselves... They were fourth in Division II last year. Again, high classification. It's going to be tough for them. The Hazleton Cougars had a very solid season a couple of years ago, had an 8-2 regular season. They flipped that on the other side. They went 2-8 this past season. So that is a big step in the wrong direction for Hazleton. We'll see if they can overcome it this year and get back on track in playing 6A ball. And the Wyoming Valley West Spartans finished last in the Division I. Listen, 1-19 in the last 2 years is nothing to be proud of, but I mean, there's really only up from here. They went 0-10 a couple of years ago, 1-9. They're trending in the right direction. Don't know if they'll be ready just yet to compete for a division title. Over in Division II, we had Wyoming area go 6-0, perfect winning Division II, and had a good playoff run. Ran into Valley View, lost Aaron Crossley in that game, and did not score a single point against Valley View in the postseason. Nanticoke had a very quiet, good season for Greater Nanticoke, 7-5. They finished 5-1 in division play. They'll be a team locked and loaded, ready to go for this season, and they can make some noise at the top of the division. The Pittston Patriots have recovered, and they've gotten to that average position. A couple of years ago, Pittston weren't winning really any games. These last couple of years, they've been able to gravitate, get some wins, and now they're putting themselves in a position where they can compete. Now they got to take that level and actually go out and win a bunch of games. The Tunkhannock Tigers went 4-6 a year ago, did not make the postseason. This team, again, is another team kind of like like Pittston, who have gotten themselves to be in that average to below average tier after a couple of bad years. They need to take that step from below average to an average up to above average if they want to contend this year in Division II. Lake Lehman opens up with Berwick in week 1. Not a great year a year ago. 2-9 season for Lake Lehman. They have some interesting players returning for this year that could make it a better season than what we saw from a year ago for Lake Lehman. At the end of the day, they are 2-9. Gary Giskley down there. They do have a very, very favorable schedule, a longtime head coach. They are stable down there in Lake Lehman, but 2-9 was not anything to be proud of. Hanover went 3-8 a year ago, 1-5 in the division. They really struggled everywhere, and they couldn't even win a game at home, 0-5 at home. And then Holy Redeemer could not get a W, 0-10 the entirety of the season for Holy Redeemer. So we had some teams that made it far. We had some teams that made the state title game. And then we had a couple of teams that can only muster a win, or in some cases couldn't get a win. So that is last year's standings. But last year doesn't matter. This year matters. And what happens now? Here it is with the 3 biggest storylines entering the Wyoming Valley Conference season. Let's start it off with Dallas. Can Dallas follow up, which what many people would call a Cinderella run for the Dallas Mountaineers. They've always been a very solid team. This past year, they elevated and they got to the best moment and to the best team they've had in a long time. 15-1 last year, 15-0 heading into the state championship game. They ran into a train that is Aliquippa. You're not expecting many teams to go out and beat Aliquippa, especially with Tyke Hayes and the way he runs the football. But they bring back a ton of guys. They bring back Dylan Jeske, who's a 27 touchdown guy a year ago. It is a tough schedule. There is a tough schedule for the Dallas Mountaineers. They open up with Jersey Shore, and when we go into next season or to next week, when we bring up the Game of the Week segment, I'll give you a little hint. That'll be our Game of the Week in the Wyoming Valley Conference. But can they follow it up, right? Beat Bishop McDevitt. That is the prestigious headlining win for Coach Rich Manello and the Mountaineers. Again, a huge game. This is the big test. How well are they reloaded and revamped, ready to go against a really good Jersey Shore team? They're not going to be favorites in that game. Can they keep it close? Can they get the win? It'll be a real telling of how good Dallas is. We know they're good. How good will they be? Will they be a couple of years ago good, where they're going to contend for a district title and lose in the first round of the state playoffs? Or are they going to be last year good, where you cannot overlook them, or they'll run right past you, which they did in an overtime game against Bonner Prendy, and then in a special team slugfest against Bishop McDevitt, and then, of course, made the state championship game. Again, they lost Zach Pacheski, the number one receiver on that team, but they bring back Brady Zapaticki and Dylan Jeske. When you look at a team in Dallas that had such an amazing run a year ago, you expect them to lose a lot more than they did. They retain a lot of great players. Again, Dylan Jeske has a chance to be the most valuable player in the Wyoming Valley Conference. 1,500 yards and 27 touchdowns a year ago. And then Zapaticki is as efficient as you could be. 26 touchdowns just compared to 7 interceptions a year ago. So Dallas, albeit a tough schedule, they put themselves in a position this season where it's not like, oh, last year was our only chance. We've seen that with teams in the past. With Crestwood a couple of years ago when they made the state playoffs, not saying that they're completely done, but that was their best chance to go make a run. And last year they fell short, going 6-5. I don't see that here with Dallas. They can revamp as good as anybody in this conference. And I think they put themselves on the pedestal as the best team in the conference, bar none at this moment in time. Next up, let's go down to Berwick, Pennsylvania, where we're located right now. New face in Berwick. I mean, CJ Curry takes the head coaching job for the Berwick Bulldogs. And listen, if you've seen anything with CJ Curry, of course, his last name holds so much weight. And I think it's been maybe a little bit too much of a distraction for Berwick with the big name of the Curry name. I'm interested to see with CJ as he can kind of make a name for himself. Of course, rely on what George has done in the past and did in the past, but make a name for yourself, right? And taking the reins as the Berwick head coach is a huge deal. And they have struggled to find that guy that they can put in there and have for 10, 15 years, right? You go back a couple of years ago, 20, 25 years ago, coaching was not even a hot button issue. We had George Curry forever, right? And then after he left, you've gone from Frank Sheptock, Carm DiFrancesco, to Mike Bennett. Bo Orlando was there a year ago in the wake of Mike Bennett's absence. So they have not found that coach yet that can stick there for 10 years. And believe it or not, it's been since 2013 since this team's even won a district title. That is unacceptable if you are the namesake of one of not just the most prestigious teams in the state, but in the entirety of the country, to not even win a district title since 2013, when Valley View's won a couple, when Dallas has won a couple, when Crestwood's been able to win some district titles, Wyoming Valley West, and you haven't won a district title since 2013. They need to get back to it. And will it be year one, district title, state playoffs in year one? I don't know. But what CJ Curry has done, building this team up, getting more players to come out, being a player's coach, I think that was the biggest thing for Berwick, to find a coach that can relate to the players, find a coach that they want to play for. And having coach stability is a huge thing in high school football. To have a coach that is, you're not cycling through them for 3 years. Since 2016, when George Curry left, they've gone through multiple coaches, and they haven't found the one that has stuck there for more than 5 years. That is how you build a winning program, right? Nick Saban in 2007 lost to University of Louisiana Monroe, okay? You're not going to win right away. And this program has been 25 and 28 in the last couple of years. They've had losing record after losing record in the last couple of years as well. They need to find success this year. CJ Curry takes the reins. Don't expect right away for Berwick to just come out and they can be this powerhouse. It's going to take time, but how will it look in year one is going to be a big telling. And our third and final biggest storyline, how does Wyoming area replace Aaron Crossley? He's off to Lehigh. He was the best player in the Wyoming Valley Conference a year ago. And they have ball players, okay? Stars that can pitch in all over. They got DeLuca playing quarterback and Kellum in the backfield. They got ball players, but you can all pitch in, but you really can't replace fully Aaron Crossley. You really cannot replace fully what Aaron Crossley did a year ago. And I was there at Wyoming area Valley View last year when Wyoming area had this team that was going to go contend for a district title. They ran into Valley View and didn't score a single point, losing 20-0. Aaron Crossley, maybe coincidentally or not, did not play in a majority of that game. He got hurt from a lingering injury. So if you're Wyoming area, you can look at it and be confident and say, hey, listen, we have shown in our camp and everything, we got guys that can all pitch in. But on the other side of things, the one time when Crossley was out, they didn't score a single point. So how this running attack will work is a huge story in Wyoming area, because they could be a team like we've seen in the past with teams that have a star running back, the star running back leaves, and they kind of middle out and head into purgatory. With Wyoming area, how will they be able to run the football is the biggest thing, okay? Can they get 6, 7, 8 yards a pop like they did a year ago? Because they didn't even have to think about a game plan. Let's hand it to this kid 25 times a game. Let's play defense when we're out of there. Can't do that anymore. They got great players, right? And I don't think it's going to be a complete amazing rushing attack that's dead. They're still going to have a good rushing attack, but you cannot replace that much of an alpha RB1 on a team, especially in Pennsylvania high school football, when running backs are the end-all be-all and teams aren't passing all that much. So those are 3 big stories. What do you guys think are the big stories in the Wyoming Valley Conference? We have some young guys coming in and starting. We have some teams like Crestwood. How will Jaden Shedlock get back and going? But I think those are the 3. How will Dallas follow up an amazing season? CJ Curry coming into Berwick, how will that look? And then how's the running attack for Wyoming area for a team that returns a lot of players, but the big dog is out in Aaron Crossley? Let's move on to our team breakdowns. We're going to try to get, 6 team breakdowns in here, as we are just now about 10 minutes away from the call-in interview with Crestwood coach Ryan Arcangeli, talking all things Crestwood Comets, and a couple of 5 to 10 minute interview. If you're a Crestwood Comet fan, you're not going to want to miss that. He's had so much success, Coach of the Year awards, and looking to get back to that moment. Let's go with the team breakdowns, and this will be in order of the division standings, starting off with Division 1. So let's aim for Division 1 before 4:30. So hopefully I don't yap too much. Let's get into it with Division 1. Dallas, 15-1 a year ago. Like I said, Geske and Zapatiki are back. That is a huge thing for the Dallas Mountaineers, albeit, as we've aforementioned, a very tough schedule. And how they start out the gate will be the biggest thing in showing how good they will be. Because you start the season against Jersey Shore, albeit at home, it's still Jersey Shore. At Wyoming area, which is a huge game in week 2 on August the 30th, home against Abington Heights, home against Wilkes-Barre. Those are 4 very tough games. And I could see them going 2-2 or 1-3 in those games. I think Jersey Shore, they'll be underdogs in. At Wyoming area, who knows, going on the road for the first time. And then Abington Heights, Wilkes-Barre, no walk in the park. the schedule does kind of lighten up the next couple of weeks, and then they finish off a big game at Crestwood on October the 11th. I'm going to put them at 8-2. Okay. I don't really know where the losses are coming, but I think they lose 2 out of Jersey Shore, Wyoming area, Abington Heights, Wilkes-Barre, and Crestwood. I think they do lose 2 of those games to get to an 8-2 regular season. This is not playoff predictions because, it's a little bit too much to predict the bracket. It's a lot to predict a team right now on August 15th at 4:20 p.m. It's a lot to predict their record right here. I'm not going to go out and say, oh, this team's going to make this moment of the playoffs, because it's all speculation at this moment. Next up is the Crestwood Comets, second in Division I a year ago, 5-1 in the division, 6-2 in the league. Really excelled early in this, they had a tough start early in the season, kind of found their rhythm, got to a position last year where they could make a run in the playoffs, came up short at a 6-5 finish to the season. I like what Crestwood is doing, bringing back Jaden Shedlock, who, as a freshman, took this team to the state semifinals, which was the pinnacle of Crestwood's success these last couple of years. They'll, of course, have a good offensive line. Crestwood is always bringing in great offensive line pieces. It's a tough schedule. It is a tough schedule for Crestwood. And looking at the schedule, it's, again, all about how you can start, because the first 2 weeks of the season is Wyoming area and Valley View, which is probably not going to be favored in either of those games. Okay? Taking on Wyoming area or Valley View, you'll be close, I believe, but not in a position where they can be favorites in either of those games. Going on to the schedule, they have some tough games down the stretch as well. Some trap games potentially at Greater Nanticoke, at Pittston, home against Dallas, at Wilkes-Barre. It's a tough schedule. There's not many walk-in-the-park wins in this schedule for Crestwood. I do think Crestwood will be a very, very good team this season. I got them going 7-3 for the Crestwood Comets. We'll see what Coach Ryan Arcangeli has to say as he joins the show in just 8 minutes. But they got to get back right now to what they did a couple of years ago with Noah Schultz and what he was able to do with Crestwood as their running back. The Wilkes-Barre Wolfpack have a tough schedule entering this season. The first 4 games are as tough as anybody in the Wyoming Valley Conference. They play host to Whitehall, who's always great. Then they got to go at Stroudsburg, home against Valley View, and then at Dallas. Those are 2 perennial playoff teams around the area. This is a tough schedule. And a lot of teams, the first 3 teams we've named, Dallas playing Jersey Shore and playing Jersey Shore early in the season. Crestwood playing tough teams early in the season. Wilkes-Barre playing tough teams early in the season. That will show who's real, who's not. That'll separate the men and the boys. That'll do the contenders and the pretenders early in the season. I think before it hits October, we know who's for real, who's not in Division I in Wyoming Valley Conference. I like what Wilkes-Barre's doing. Jake Howe's coming back. Trayvon Jembetsky's coming back. They have a very, very good offense. They lose Evan Laybourne Body, who was phenomenal last year. But Jake Howe, pro-style quarterback, is very good coming back. He's only now coming into his junior season. I think Wyoming or Wilkes-Barre area, this is finally the year for the Wolfpack. They prove that they contend and they are a big dog or a big wolf in the conference. They go 7-3, which is tough. But you look at the back half of the schedule after week 4, West Scranton, Hazleton, Pittston, Wyoming Valley West, Crestwood, and Williamsport. Solid enough teams, but not teams you're looking at right now and saying, man, that's going to be tough. Man, that's going to be tough. Crestwood's going to be tough. Nanticoke's going to be tough. Some other of these teams are going to be tough. I agree. But they're nothing like Whitehall and Dallas and Valley View early in the season. Next up's the Hazleton Cougars. And they had a season a couple of years ago. They were 8-2. They were as good as it got in the Wyoming Valley Conference. Not last year. They were 2-8. They struggled mightily last year. Early in the season, couldn't do much. End of the season, couldn't do much. really, of anything. And it was really a big shocker to see what Hazleton went through a year ago. They come back this season and they play tough. They play tough ball games. They play Nazareth week 1, which is a tough game in 6A. I think it will be another rough season for Hazleton. There are far ways for me to put themselves in a position where they can go compete. It's in 6A. It's tough at a conference schedule. I think the Hazleton Cougars go 2-8. Harsh, but I think they do find themselves at 2-8. Let's go down to the Pittston Patriots, the old Pats. You know, ever since Tom Brady left, the Pittston Patriots have not been that good. No, just kidding. They've risen from the ground. The last couple of years for Pittston, it was in a bad spot, and they needed a lot to get out of it, and they did get out of it. They were able to climb from what was a very, very bad couple of years, right? You look in the end of the 2010s, they were going 4-7 in 2018, 4-7 in 2019, going, so bad records. Last year, they found themselves at 5-6. This season upcoming, they take on Lake Lehman, Mid-Valley early in the season, some tough games down the stretch with Dallas and Crestwood and Wilkes-Barre. But it's not a gauntlet of a schedule. It is a pretty comfortable schedule for the Hazleton Cougars, for the Pittston Patriots. Got my mind on Hazleton still. I think for Pittston, they will put themselves at 5-5. 5-5 for Pittston, another 5-5 season. They put themselves, again, in that average echelon of teams. They need to step up if they want to contend in the conference, but a 5-5 season is something to build on there for the Pittston Patriots. Wyoming Valley West, 1-19 the last 2 years. Nothing to be proud of. A once team that was a contender perennially in the conference has now fallen. Paul Riggs returns, though, who's a great player for them. Bob Stelma is building something at that program. I think they do improve slightly this season. But if I'm high on them, I can't be too high on them. Just because of the past, I haven't seen anything right now that looks like this team can go out there and contend. Tough games against Scranton. They have, Pittston, Hazleton coming in. Dallas, Wilkes-Barre, Valley View, Crestwood. The last 4 weeks of the season against Dallas, Wilkes-Barre, Valley View, and Crestwood are some of the best teams in the area. I think they do go 2-8. I think it is 2-8 for the Wyoming Valley West Spartans. It's not a great season, but considering what has happened in the past, can I really predict them to go any better than what they've had previously? I don't think I can. And what we've seen from Wyoming Valley West these last couple of years, they were not as bad as they were a couple of years ago. When they went 0-10, they were not competitive in any games. They were competitive in some games, and early in the season last year, it looked like this team was on the way up and they could get to a 4-6, maybe a 5-5. Didn't go their way last year, but it was a better 1-9 than people would give them credit for. They were not your typical 1-9 blown out every single week 1-9 They were a put up a fight 1-9 team, if that even exists in high school football. They were as close to that as possible. They put up a fight in games. They put up a fight in a lot of games last year. That gives them promise and gives them a chance this season to go out and make noise. How much noise? Not expecting much out of Wyoming Valley West. Calm down, buddy. Who cares? This guy's trying to tell me about Good Morning America. I don't care. Early in the season, they beat North Pocono. And I remember I was at Berwick Southern Columbia. And I'm like, man, they beat North Pocono. That's a quality team. They could have a run. This team early in the season, they got to get back to where they were early in the season. Because if you look at it, going from an 0-10 football team a year ago, or 2 years ago, to early in the season, winning against North Pocono by 8. They lost to Scranton 29-0. But week 3, they only lost by 7 to Pittston. Week 4, only lost by 10 only lost by 10 to Crestwood. So early in the season last year, Wyoming Valley West had prowess and had promise that they were going to give you a game entering the fourth quarter. The back half of the season is where it really went wrong. 45-0 to Dallas, 35-7 to Berwick, 42-7 to Williamsport, 50-14 to Hazleton, 41-21 to Scranton Prep, and finishes off their regular season 42-0. So what Wyoming Valley West team are we getting is the biggest thing in determining, will they be a contender to win 4 or 5 games? Will they be a contender to make the playoffs? Is probably the biggest thing for Wyoming Valley West. This season, make the postseason. That is the number one thing. Get yourself into the tournament. And if you can do that, see where it goes. But something has to change, because this is a team that is a sleeping giant right now in terms of pageantry and history in the conference. So Wyoming Valley West, hey, there's some teams, when Wyoming Valley West is good, the league is good. We see that all the time in college. When Miami's good, college is good, right? Where in the NFL, when the Steelers are good, the NFL is good. There's just some historic teams that when they're good, the league is good, and it's better, and it's for the betterment of the league. And I think that is hoping to happen with Wyoming Valley West. All righty, folks. Let's get ready for our interview with Coach Ryan Arcangeli live here. See if he answers our call. We're talking all things Crestwood Comets for the next 5 to 10 minutes.
Hello.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. How you doing?
Pretty good. You are live on YouTube, so nothing that will get you out of your job.
Make sure I'll stay positive about everything.
All right, so
absolutely.
I was looking. Yep, no problem. I was looking. So I cover Berwick, right? And I go to all the I go to all the Berwick games.
Yep.
And I interview the coaches at the end. And I was looking. You are my most interviewed coach, which is pretty wild considering I've been to every Berwick game, and I only go to Crestwood when they play against Berwick. I've interviewed you 5 times. I've been to the Crestwood Valley View game in the conference, the district title. So that's pretty funny because Berwick's been through different coaches and haven't won all that much. I've been to 8 times the Berwick games, but so
they'll be hopefully they change that. They'll be on the up and up. They got a great guy.
Yeah, CJ Curry coming in. He'll be
an opportunity to go 7-on-7 with them this year, and what a fantastic young man. So they're in a great shape. So for sure you'll get a chance to go visit Berwick football, and I know he's going to do a great job.
So we're 8 days away. I mean, can you believe it? We're getting ready. Week 1 again, huh?
It's insane.
and in a couple months we'll be saying, man, it's over already. I mean, that's every single year.
And you wave goodbye to another group of seniors, and families, and you try to impress that upon the kids as much as you can, that that the best season all year is your shortest one. And we get 10 chances at this thing, guaranteed chances at this thing, and you got to appreciate the time that you have, embrace it as long as you can, and because before you know it, my goodness, we're walking across the field for senior night with mom and dad, and then before you know, you're walking across the stage and shaking Pickle's hands for the last time. So it's crazy how quickly it comes and goes.
So we've entered that moment now where it's time to get ready for week 1, right? How much film have you done? How close are you getting your final preparations as we're 8 days away?
Well, I mean, you have to guard yourself, at least our coaches do, guard yourself from, getting into that week 1 opponent too quickly. If you jump into it too quickly, then you put all your eggs in that basket, and, so many things happen. The ball bounces weird ways, things happen, injuries happen. And if things don't go your way that week and you put everything for months and months in advance, into that, then the kids they can get demoralized, because you fell short. Obviously the goal is to win every game, and that's certainly what we're going to plan to do. But you have to, again, guard yourself and to do that. So you worry about you, and you get better at what we do special teams wise. We get better at what we do offensively, defensively, kind of setting up that culture. Everybody says that way, and that is, what's your expectation? So you worry about lifting weights. You worry about each and every day, and then it kind of builds up to the now. But then certainly then you guard yourself for a while, and then you get itchy. and you want to, put 2 or 3 weeks of preparation in your first opponent. So you start to curtail some drills that'll specifically, meet the challenges of that first week. We think we've done that, and then we'll go into our full planning mode. Once Saturday's in the books with our scrimmage, we'll treat it like every other week, and that is we get our film from the day, from the night before. In this case, it'll be a Saturday from the afternoon. We'll start to break that down as a staff on Saturday evening or afternoon and evening. By Sunday, our plan in the morning is going to be, finalized. And by Sunday afternoon, we're going to be ready to coach it to our coaches, coach it to our students. And then, Monday through Thursday, get as many dress rehearsals as possible before Friday rolls around. So, we're focused, but we can't lose sight of ourselves. We've got to worry about us first, and the rest will take care of itself.
Yep, we're pretty deep into the summer practice and whatnot. We're gearing up for the season. How are the team looking? What's the health of the guys, the morale, and how are you looking ready for week 1?
Well, I think everybody at this point, morale is high. You're always ride high in the summertime. You felt you did everything right, or at least you hope you did everything right. Right now, we're extremely healthy. We had injury bug last year. It took a lot of our key players away for a number of weeks. Not an excuse. It was reality. So we've really been conscious of how much we're hitting, how much we're running, conscious of how much, what we're putting our receivers through, our linemen through. And we think that we've developed an off-season plan and in-season kind of mindset plan that's going to hopefully help out with the health aspects of things. So we're as healthy as we can be. Senior leadership's been awesome, but really just leadership in general. It's not just a senior thing, and that's kind of what we had to kind of change that mindset that we're just counting on one group of kids. It's kind of got to be the whole thing. And I think our kids have embraced that, and they kind of wanted it that way. It doesn't just have to be 1, 2, or 3 kids. It's nice to have captains. We have 3 great ones, but leadership's got to come from everybody. So our leadership is solid. When everybody kind of has their hand in the pot, I think it really adds to morale because they feel like they have a place. That they're not just a part of it, one small piece, but, they can be the whole thing. So everybody has their hand in the pot, which is a good thing when you're trying to build the character of a team. We think we've done that. We're healthy. We're excited. And hopefully we can have the results we're looking for the next couple of weeks.
You mentioned injuries and the big one last year to your quarterback and Jaden Shedlock that really hurt the team. How has he handled the offseason and kind of the grind of getting back under center as QB1?
Yeah, I mean, it's not easy when you have an injury. He had a serious injury, to his shoulder, and and he had to get a surgery done, during the season last year. He had to be really regimented, in listening to the doctors, and he was told, if you go off that track, you're going to go off the track, and you may not be looking at it next season. So he had to follow to the letter of the law. He did. To sleeping upright for 3 months, and to learning how to use his other hand and do things. It's crazy. The things we take for granted, and certainly he didn't. But he did a great job listening to the doctors. He prepared himself as good as he possibly could. Upper body, lower body. When he got the green light to lift weights, he started hammering the weight room. He's put 20 plus pounds on of good weight, good muscle weight. He's going to play a lot heavier than he did last year without having to give up that speed. He still did very well in track season. I think he got faster over the summer because he really couldn't train the legs December, January, February. So he's kind of just getting him under himself during that track season. Now he's back really to full mode in terms of being able to run the football effectively. So he looks great. The arm's never better. He continued to perfect his craft, and but he's the sum of his parts. He doesn't have to carry the team. He doesn't have to do that. He just has to be, a part of it. Certainly, the quarterback is a big part of it. We understand, and he does too. But he's only going to be as good as the guys around him, and they have his back, and he's got theirs, and he's in a really good place right now.
We hear a lot in terms of coaching and strategizing that having a great running game opens up the pass, and vice versa.
Sure.
But how does having a great running quarterback open up either more options at running or going out and throwing the football?
Well, it certainly puts a lot of stress on our opponents. When you can have a guy that can be a true dual threat. There's quarterbacks that can run you know, or like they're runner, you know, that can run, and then there's quarterbacks that are runners. You know what I mean? He is a runner. He doesn't just do it to keep you honest. He can do it to beat you. So having that arm like that, but if you keep in the pocket, and that's the plan, I think he's really kind of evolved as a passer. So it really does put a lot of stress on a defense. You know, what does it do to an offense? It puts as much stress on me. That's trying to call it, because you know you have so many options, but at the same time, we can't go overboard. You know, we're trying to draw in the sand. You're picking things out new because you don't feel like you can do what you're doing enough, because he has such a skill set. So we still have to be regimented as a staff, you know, and not to try to do too much, but then just take advantage of what he can do. Obviously, he's gifted in terms of his legs. He can run. He's got a little wiggle to him, and he's got a great arm to boot. So it opens things up for us, certainly. But we have to stay within our means, because, again, it's great that he can do all those things, but he's got to have the pieces around him to make that work. We feel he has those weapons, which is great. But, again, a lot of stress on the defense for sure. Makes it easier for me as a play caller, as long as you know, we stay inside the lanes. Don't try to get too crazy.
And, you know, no running game would be anything without the five guys up front. And no secondary would be anything with the big boys on the defensive line. When you're teaching, and Crestwood's had such a great line, offensive and defense, for a long time now, when you're teaching the summer and you're teaching offensive and defensive line, how do you teeter the line from aggression and going and getting after it, and then having good technique? Because if you run right at it and you're just fully aggressive, you won't be technical. On the flip side, when you're too technical, you can't, you know, get home in that sense. So how do you teach that?
Well, I mean, that's, if you have the answer to that chapter, or if you have the answer to that question, I'm going to start a new chapter in the book. You rely on talent. You have the guys, and you know, and again, we feel like we have a pretty special group up front, you know, but we've been able to do that because I think we've got great coaches. You know, Coach Sentak, Coach Goodney, you know, with the offensive line. And now for a number of years, Coach Bibla as well. So having the tutelage of those three guys that will play to all three levels have a great understanding of the game, you know, both offensively and defensively. So it starts with great coaches, and we've got three really good ones. And then again, how do you find the balance? The biggest challenge is, you know, coaching the same in high school, and it's every coach. Coaching an offensive lineman, that's a defensive lineman. Offensive lineman, you want to hug him and bring him in. And a defensive lineman, we want to keep the arm straight, and keep him at bay. So it's trying to find that, which is tough to do. What we have had success with is we don't take away the aggression. The technique of either bringing them close or pushing them away, we can teach the technique, but the aggression, we can't turn that on and turn that off. So, you know, our scheme, the way we do it, our single wing, you know, ask our linemen to come off the ball, roll off the ball, a lot of pullers, a lot of guys out in front. We need to keep that aggression. And we've kind of done that on both sides of the ball. So although the technique may be different up top from the waist up, our technique does not change from the waist down. And that is, our feet need to be moving at all times. Again, all things that are cliche and easy to say. But if we don't come off the football, it really doesn't matter what else we do. You know, the waist up ain't going to make a difference. How well we place our hands, how straight our arms are, how we bring guys in. It won't matter if our feet aren't matching it. So it starts with their base. The base starts in the weight room. That thing's developed in January or right through the summertime. Again, with all three of those coaches, and then, you know, we develop the rest from the waist up. You know, once we get out and we get you know, bang with pads and helmets. So it's a tough balance for sure, but our success in the past has been, we'll build the kid from the waist down. We'll keep that motor running, and then we'll teach the technique from the waist up as we go.
So you guys had an incredible season a couple of years ago, winning the district title and going into the state postseason. Last year didn't go the way you guys wanted. When you are kind of, you know, getting ready for this season, are you looking back on what worked a couple of years ago, or is every season just a new season? We got to approach it as it's 2024, not approach it like it was a couple of years ago.
Yeah, every season is a new season, and we have to, and it's only for the reason of, you know, the question you're asking me, because you get the same questions from parents, you know, parents and fans of the program. You know, it was so good. You know, what's about this kid that reminds you of that team, or a team we had in 2020, or a team we had in 14? All years we won the district title or made a run, and then you're trying to, you know, link these guys to that one and trying to find ways. You get tired. trying to do that. It's so much easier to create your new identity and your new look. So as a coaching staff, you look at the practice, not the plays, not the defensive scheme or offensive scheme, but practice. What was successful? What got us to be successful that year? What do we like about practice? What do we like about our off-season plan? That we can always go look back on, because I think that's the best thing to do. Not so much in games, because those kids have changed. The kids that played in the games you watched last year, half of them are gone, and the other half are bigger and stronger. So you can't. We don't dwell too much on game tape and looking where we screwed up there. And every year is different. You just got to play to your hand. But the constants are what we ask the kids to do in terms of dedication. The constant is how we communicate to parents, how we schedule our practices, what did we like, what didn't we like, make changes that way. And then X's and O's, that's every off season where we look at the kids that we have, how are they developing, and then try to match the defensive and offensive skill set based on what the players can do. You know what I mean? So a little bit in the past, but for the most part, every year's a new year.
All right, so final one here, a little bit of a fun one. We're done with the technical stuff. Let's say you're creating a team, okay? You're familiar with the game start, bench, cut?
Start, bench, cut. I'll go with it. Sure,
so
absolutely. I got an idea.
You start one, you bench one, and you cut one. Hence the name start, bench, cut, believe it or not. So you can have the best running back in the state, the best offensive line in the state, or the best defensive line in the state. You're building a team from scratch. Which one are you starting? Which one are you benching? Which one are you cutting?
Oh, boy. Start, bench, cut. Oh, man. Start, bench, cut. I'm going to, because I am a retired offensive lineman. So I'm going to start our offensive line.
Okay.
I'm a start there. It's not flashy, but it don't really matter how good that running back is or quarterback or anybody else if you don't have 5 in front. So, and you better have 7 because injuries happen. So I'm going to start the offensive line. I'm going to bench the D-line, and that sounds terrible because you got to get after the quarterback too. And we've been our best. We've got a really good defensive line, and then I'll cut the running back.
Okay.
I'll cut the running back. So if I got a good offensive line, I can find a guy that can go behind him. And so I'll take it that way. Although if you had a 5-star running back for me, I'd love to have him.
Not going to turn it down.
Yeah, I won't trade my guys. They're great kids. But if you have the next blue chips, send them my way to Mountaintop. For sure.
All right. Sounds good. Hey, good luck this season. You talk about a new identity. We're hoping to see that this year. Hopefully you guys have another great year, and good luck this year.
Yeah, we're hoping so too. Got great kids, great families, great support, and go Comets.
All right.
Appreciate your time, buddy.
Appreciate it. See you, man.
All right. Take care.
All right, that was Crestwood coach Ryan Arcangeli. A good conversation. 15 minutes down the hatch as we're hoping to have him on potentially 1 or 2 more times this upcoming season. Really great football mind. Could really pick his brain. It's great having these high-level guys. No disrespect to the media out there, but when you can actually talk to a coach that has done it and who has played and whatnot, you get such high-level analysis that is really irreplaceable and invaluable. And Crestwood has built a good program there over the last couple of years, and we'll see what's coming up in the future. Let's continue with our Wyoming Valley Conference previews. Let's continue now. Let's go to Division II with the Berwick Bulldogs. And as we mentioned earlier in the show, CJ Curry's back, and Coach Curry has returned to Crisbin Field. I will be there next Friday, August the 23rd. It's going to be interesting seeing kind of the Curry homers come out of the den, if you will, out of the doghouse is more of a Berwick thing, and kind of supports CJ and another Coach Curry in Berwick. He was so great a couple of years ago, over a decade now, in 2013 when they won the district title, the last time they won the district title. They lost a lot a year ago. They lost Ethan Lear, their quarterback, Tyler Winter, their number 1 running back, and their number 1 receiver, Braylon Hawkins. But they get 4 starters on the line, and a move down to 3A is a little bit more of a quote-unquote cupcake schedule. It's nicer moving from 3A and moving down to District 2, where you don't have to run into teams like Dallas every single year, and moving down a classification. They did schedule tough out-of-league games against Lackawanna Trail and Selinsgrove. So there are tough games in the schedule. They take 4 guys back in the offensive line. That's big. They're going to want to run this ball this year. The Curry era back in full effect in Berwick. 3-8 a year ago. I think they improve, and they're going to go 6-4 this year. I think Berwick does go 6-4. Greater Nanticoke, Scott Dennis back year 2 with the Nanticoke Trojans. 7-5 last year. I think they went 6-4 in the regular season. I do think they repeat as what they did a year ago. I think they get back to a 6-4 season. Another team, a lot of teams are kind of stuck in that middle. You put Berwick in there, you put Nanticoke in there, you put Pittston in there, kind of that middle chunk. It's going to be very interesting this year. Who's going to separate? Who's going to be? There's 3 teams right here. One of them is bound to take that leap and bound and go win a district title, win the conference, have an 8-9 win season. There's going to be a breakout team. I'll guarantee you that right away. There will be a breakout team. Call me crazy, but there will be. Hanover, this team, 3-8 a year ago. I'm really intrigued with what Hanover is bringing back this year. To be exact, 17 starters out of 22 returning this year. They only lost 5 starters on this offense a year ago. 3-8 last year. I think they improved to 5-5. A tough season again. Yeah, last year 3-7 regular season, lost in the first round. But when you are able to return 17 starters, bringing them back, it reminds me if you're playing college football 25. Every time a guy comes back, he gets 5 overalls better. And if you want to look at it like this, I know it's not a video game, it's high school football, it's real life. They're going to get 5 overalls better, 17 players, which is just huge for bringing back guys, especially when you had a rough regular season last year. Lake Lehman is up next. Jerry Gliski is looking for his first winning season since COVID. It's been a long time for Lake Lehman to get back to the winning record over there in a black field. It's a favorable schedule. It is a favorable schedule for Lake Lehman where they could be either favorites or close, not like, oh man, we're going to lose this game, chalk it up as a loss. There's not many of that on the Lake Lehman schedule. I'm going to put Lake Lehman at a 4-6 record. Struggling, I get it, but better than last year. I'll go 4-6 for Lake Lehman. Tunkhannock, and the big problem with the Tunkhannock Tigers, they can't stay competitive. I'll say it flat out, they're not able to be competitive this year. 4-6 last year. Their closest loss was 41-6, a 36-point loss, or excuse me, a 35-point loss. When you lose by that much, it degrades a team. Because if you lose by 35, which was the best loss on the schedule, was 41-6. There's not much to say in the locker room. There's not much morale to get the team going, ready to back and competing. They need to be in games when it comes to the fourth quarter. That's the biggest thing. Get them in games going into the fourth quarter, which they were not in when they lost last year. They won closer games, and then when it came to the fourth quarter last year, in games that they lost, or really halftime, get the game to the third quarter, and anything can happen, right? When you talk about making big-time plays and big-time moments, you never have a big-time moment if you're not in the game in the third, fourth quarter. So they have to shore it up by their closest loss was 35 points. That can't happen. It's unacceptable for Tunkhannock. They need to be in games after halftime. They need to be in games down the stretch. They were not at all, and that was the problem with them. I think they go 3-7 this year. It's brutally honest, but I don't think they're going to be incredible this year. And finally, Wyoming area. I think Wyoming area in the division, they are number 1, bar none. Like Dallas is in Division 1. Division 2, Wyoming area is leaps and bounds above every team. And every team on this list in Division 2, I would take Wyoming area by about 2 to 3 touchdowns in every single game. And we'll get to it in week 1 next week in the preview for week 1 episode. But I'm looking at Wyoming area. I'm looking at them as the alpha team, the team to beat in this conference, in this division, DeLuca is back, right? Of course, they lost Crossley, which we mentioned earlier. They got a bunch of people that can fit and fill the hole nicely. It's a very favorable schedule for Wyoming area. That schedule for Wyoming area is easy. I'll go out and say it right away. It is an easy schedule for the Warriors. They don't need to. Crossley is 100% of a hole, right? You don't need to fill it back 100%. You can 20% here, 15% here, 20% here. Pitch at it, and you could, as a group, get back what Crossley gave to you offensively. And I think that team this upcoming season, I have them at a 9-1 record, number one in the entirety of the conference, number one in Division II by 3 games. I think this team will be very good. This is the number one team I'm high on. Entering this year is the Wyoming Area Warriors. Book it. They win the conference at 9-1. With that being said, I'm going to contradict myself here because I have our top 5, Wyoming Valley Conference top 5, presented by Bow Wow Buddy Dog Grooming in Berwick, Pennsylvania. We treat your pets like family. Not me, not we, but the owner of Bow Wow Buddy Dog Grooming. The updated rankings, we'll update these every single week. It's the Power 5, WVC top 5 power rankings heading into this season. I had Wyoming area at 9-1 and Dallas at 8-2. They're flip-flopped. I'll give you a little bit of a hint coming into this one. But this is entering the season, okay? If I think this team goes 10-0, I'm not going to rank them higher on the power rankings because a thought is different from reality, okay? My number 5 team in the conference is Berwick and the Bulldogs. I think they will just sneak in here at the number 5 team. I don't think I'm putting them really above anybody. And actually, if this was a tier list, I would put Berwick as a tier 5, 3 and 4 as 3 and 4 as a tier of their own, and then 1 and 2 as a tier of their own. But a huge drop off for Berwick at number 5. We mentioned the offensive line coming back. They will be very solid. I have to put them at number 5, though. Number 4 is the Crestwood Comets. Just talk with Coach Ryan Arcangeli. If you didn't catch that, go back to the about half-hour mark of this episode. You can catch it. A whole 15-minute interview is great. Talking to him. I'm going to have him at 4, though. I think they will be a very solid team. Last year, they couldn't really catch a break, and losing in the postseason definitely hurt for that team early in the postseason as well. It's going to be a tough season with the schedule, but I think they will go to number 4. My number 3 team's the Wilkes-Barre area Wolfpack. And what they've been able to do these last couple of years is not good, right? When you came with the idea a couple of years ago that we're gonna combine 3 different schools and we're gonna take enrollment, triple enrollment, they were looking like, can we get a state championship in the next decade? They're nowhere near that. They've had some great players that left, of course. Makai Nelson and Naquan Johnson have left to the Connecticut area previously. But I think they're going to get back this year with Jay Cow and a player we're going to talk about on our players to watch this year. I have them at number 3. Number 2, Wyoming area, just talked about him again. Crossley coming back, but another player on the players to watch this year list I think might have been a deal. It might be a bigger deal that he's coming back than Crossley's leaving. And at number 1, I do have Dallas. Even if they go 8-2 and Wyoming area goes 9-1, I think they could be putting themselves in a better position than Wyoming area because of the schedule that Dallas has. It is a very, very tough schedule. All right. It is almost time for the 2-minute warning. 58 minutes have gone by here on the opening episode of the Wyoming Valley Conference Preview Podcast. 2-minute warning. Let's get into it with the players to watch. First off, 5 players in the Wyoming Valley Conference players to watch this year. If you're looking to go to games and you want to check out a star player with a good team around him, these are the 5 you want to look at. First off is Jaden Shedlock. Again, we talked about him earlier with Coach Arcangeli. This season, he puts on 20 pounds, which I didn't know that. Now I do. Had his season cut short last year. Incredible athlete. This guy was a 1,000-yard rusher as a freshman. He is a true dual-threat quarterback. He might not even be a dual-threat quarterback. He might just be a one-dimensional quarterback running the ball, which is a wild thing to say. He's definitely more of a runner than a passer, and he will be electric this year for Crestwood. Check him out if you can. Dylan Geske. 27 rushing touchdowns last year in big games for Dallas. He came through against Bonner Prendy, against Bishop McDevitt. He was their workhorse. Once again, he'll be the anchor of this offense. Senior season, you got to go catch a Dallas game. How about Chase DeSanto? Probably the best player in the conference right now. Out of Wyoming area, offensive lineman. He's one of the best linemen in the state. He's one of the main reasons Aaron Crossley had the success he did a year ago. Crossley's great. I love the guy. Great, great player. But Chase DeSanto had an amazing impact on Aaron Crossley and what he did. You got to go if you're a fan of the trenches and you're a fan of the boys down in the trenches, you got to check this man out because he is a game record. And then fourth on the list, Trayvon Jembetsky out of Wilkes-Barre area was the wide receiver 2 last year to Evan Laybourne body, but now he's gone. He takes the number 1 role, 400 yards a year ago, coming into his junior season. The number 1 role for Jake Howe, who's a guy that can flat out sling the rock. That is a pretty big deal. And if I think Wilkes-Barre will be as good as I predict them to be, he's going to have a big impact to that. Next up is Hanover area's quarterback Logan Richardson, starting as a freshman. That's a big deal. Hanover, a tough season last year, and they're going to have a new era, 4 more years. Like the presidential candidates, if you're running for 4 more years, Logan Richardson, if everything goes right, will be there for 4 more years. They're returning 17 starters. He's one of the starters they're not returning. He's set up with a great offense and an experienced offense. If he could have a very productive season year 1, you're looking at a 4-year run for Hanover where they can legitimately contend in the division. So, folks, an hour has passed. If you want to look at the season all right, some timestamps for you here as we get out on this podcast as an outro. If you want to know what the podcast is about, go about this 30-second mark. If you want to see what the season happened a year ago for the teams, go to about the 2-minute mark. The storylines start at about the 12-minute mark. The team breakdowns started around the 15-minute mark. Interview with Coach Ryan Arcangeli is about the half-hour mark. The second part of the team interviews are from about the 45-minute mark to the 55-minute mark. The top 5 power rankings are the 55-minute mark, and then the players to watch is the 58-minute mark. Great show, fun show, cannot wait. Hopefully, I won't be here alone next time. Either Quincy Piper, A Field of Dreams, joining us. That'll do it for the first ever episode of the Wyoming Valley Conference Preview Podcast. We'll see you guys next week on High School Football Eve. Should be fun.